Gents, I wanted to start off today with an ongoing topic, which is always great to I think to start a show with, and that's Man United's next potential manager. The news last night and today, and this echoes something I've been told for about 4 or 5 months now. Man United are having conversations with potentially bringing the current Ipswich manager back to Man United. He's a former coach of ours, as our new manager to lead the rebuild under INEOS. Thoughts on this link, gents?
Let Mo go first.
I'm going to take this because big Man United getting a championship manager is fantastic to see. Fantastic to see. I don't know a lot about Ipswich Town. I don't watch championship, but all I know is this guy doesn't have a lot of experience in the in football in terms of coaching. He was an assistant to Ollie, if I'm not mistaken, and then he went to coach Ipswich. Yes, got them to the Premier League, but Vincent Kompany got Burnley to the Premier League, and he got relegated right down because he doesn't have the experience enough. Some Man City fans said, "Oh, Vincent Kompany, future Man City." You guys, to be honest with you, this is Man United in a nutshell at the current moment. I don't feel sorry for you because you had your time on top. I don't know if this is the right guy, but I actually think this can be the right guy for this fan base. The reason why he is, I watched a couple of his interviews and a couple of press conferences. He's a good guy in talking. He knows how to talk, what to talk. And he is going to teach the fan base to be patient. If Man United get a big name, the fans will demand success tomorrow or the year after. Well, they're getting someone like this is telling the fan base from this board that everybody wants to trust. Wait, we are building. We aren't in for an instant success. We are trying to build something here. If Man United go tomorrow and get Thomas Tuchel, 1 year the fan base are like, why aren't we winning?
Do sell out.
What? No, it's like, why aren't we winning? What is happening here? But if Man United get McKenna, I think it shows where the club is at. And it actually I think the last thing I'm going to say, it puts the fan base on the ground again. It brings them back to the ground. This is where you are. This is the level you are now. Wait, be patient, play your role at the current moment as Man United. You aren't Liverpool, you aren't challenging, you aren't Arsenal, you aren't Man City. This is McKenna. We're building with him. Maybe if it doesn't work, you bring in another one. This is my opinion.
I actually agree with you, but the one thing I'll only question, and I always question this. This is genuinely my biggest problem with this McKenna thing, and it's the same thing that I said about Slot to Liverpool and all this. The only $1 million question that will only be answered if he actually gets the job and tries is always, is it too much of a step up? That's the only question I can ask, because we already know. I've watched, obviously, listen, I'm not like a championship fan. I'm sat here watching the championship. I'd be a liar if I said so. But of course, we've seen clips of Ipswich play football. I've seen a couple of games on them, sometimes in the background and stuff, because I really like the championships. I actually think it's very enjoyable to watch, just from outside looking in. I think they play really good football. It's offensive. It's good to watch. It brings back the old school Man United. The only question, genuine question here, and if you're a Man United fan, you should be questioning this as well. Is it too much of a step up? This is just the only question, because if you become the Man United manager, you wear that crest, you do that first press conference, is that crest too heavy on you? Is it too much of a step up? Does McKenna need to go manage like Wolves first, as an example, or Palace first?
Yeah. So I think that question, whether it's too big a step up, is fair. And it won't be answered. It won't be answered until he comes in. But it's a very fair question. There is not a response I think a Man United fan can put out there that debunks it or settles everybody's nerves. What I do find interesting is I searched my and McKenna. I was like, I just wanted to go back because there was something in the back of my mind. I remember reading something about him back in October 2001. There was an article in The Athletic, and it came out when players were slamming the coaching at the club. And the article said that more than one well-placed source insists that McKenna commands a huge amount of respect from the players through the manner of his setup, and the way he conducts himself in training. There was another part of that article that also goes on to say that many people in United and many people within football feel that McKenna is the type of coach who will one day manage one of the big 6 teams in the Premier League. And I sort of forgot the ins and outs of that article. So I went back to the article because I knew I'd shared something about him and his coaching years ago, and I couldn't quite find it. And then I did. Then I found it. And listen, because there was an article from years ago that said that he could potentially manage a top clubs one day, doesn't necessarily equal that he is right for Manchester United right now. However, this is someone that's not just been plucked out of obscurity. This is somebody who this is what he said. The article here said a well-placed a number of associates said that McKenna has a potential to go on to manage a top 6 Premier League club, such as his level of diligence and research when preparing and coaching his teams. So this was done years before he came to Man United. So am I now surprised that he's taken over Ipswich, got back-to-back promotions, which is a rarity in the UK, a rarity to do back-to-back. He has a connection to Man United. He knows lots of the club from top to bottom. He has a great relationship with a lot of our young players because he was the youth academy coach. Am I, again, doing cartwheels for this link? I said the same thing about Thomas Frank yesterday. No, I'm not sitting here and thinking, oh my God, this is the greatest thing we could do. But I'm equally not panicking about it because I agree with what you've said, Mo. I think Man United, although you'll have United fans saying, we've got to have standards. You've got to have this high standards, Terry. You've got to build the foundation for those standards to sit upon. If you could build the most amazing house with the best bricks, the best timber, the best concrete. You could decorate it with the most expensive furniture in the world, have the best decorators come in and do it, have the greatest landscape gardening done. If you haven't built solid foundations, it will all crumble. So your standards can be as high as you want. You can buy the best players, you can get the best manager. If the foundation isn't built, it will fall apart. And unless we can find a top-class manager that fits the Standard FC level, who's also willing to help us gut the place first, with the potential of going further backwards before we move forward, then we are going to have to look for a different type of manager. The one thing with McKenna is that I speak to my brother about him, who follows the EFL. McKenna's football is renowned across league football in the UK in terms of its high quality football, excellent positioning, modern, if you want to call it that. And I think to get fans on side and to give fans patience, the style of football, I think, is going to be key. The football having an element of entertainment, having those sort of green shoots of hope of, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I can get behind this, even if we're not progressing to begin with at a rate everybody's excited about. So, as I say, I don't think he's the number one target. It's been said to me by a number of journalists that he's been on the list for a while. I'm not doing cartwheels, but I'm equally not panicking. And by the way, yes, just like Thomas Frank, I would take Kieran McKenna over Southgate 100 times over. Like, if that's the other option, give me McKenna. But that's just on a personal preference. But either way, I'm staying true to myself on this. I am going to trust Dan Ashworth. I'm going to trust Barada in their decision-making. If they believe it's the right football decision, I'm going to put my faith in that decision for a period of time.
Can I ask you a question? Realistic name. What name would you rather have for Man United? Realistic. Don't give me Zidane. Like this. I need a realistic name. I know it's a very tough question for you, but realistic name, would you be like, I actually think this is the best for me personally? Like, if you ask Sam, he would tell you a name for Liverpool, but I want your name. I know you haven't said that to your audience.
So realistic name. I look at the 5 names that are on the top of our list right now. You've got McKenna, you've got Thomas Frank, you've got Tuchel, you've got Potter, you've got Southgate. They to me feel like the most realistic. Now, I know a lot of people will say, pay the money and get Inzaghi, pay the money and get Big Ange out of Tottenham. I don't think that's realistic. These managers are committed to where they are right now. And so I'll turn my fan on because this room gets so warm in the summer. So of those 5 that are currently the favourites with the bookmakers, if we just stick to those 5 names, as opposed to just plucking names that are not linked to the club, Tuchel is the top of the pile for me in the sense of his CV. However, the question mark over Thomas Tuchel is he going to, in the short term, medium and long term, be happy with not being in control? and just being the coach of a team, because that is how I think we're going to be setting up. If Tuchel isn't happy, his track record of falling out with board members makes it really difficult. If I then look at who's left, Potter, Thomas Frank, McKenna, and Southgate, I then go Thomas Frank.
Oh,
This
Yeah,
is very interesting. Oh my God, really?
that's so interesting, really.
Oh my God, are you serious? Can you
Yeah,
unpack this a little bit?
I would go Thomas Frank before Graham Potter.
Why?
So I look at, again, I can't, although some Chelsea fans defend Graham Potter and they say the club was the issue in all of this, I think that holds a lot of water. The one element of Potter that frustrated me when he went to Chelsea was he changed his image, got the fade in the hair, started wearing the slick suits, and I worry whether he'd have another image crisis coming to Man United and would fail. So that's literally. By the way, here I'm splitting hairs because none of these candidates are like my actual favorites. So Thomas Frank slightly over Potter, then it would be Potter, then it would be McKenna, and then after those four, I'd have a few spaces, and then a few more spaces, and then it'd be Southgate. So, and my issue with Southgate, I mean, you actually could argue, barring Tuchel, he's probably more experienced than the rest, having managed England and the pressures that come with that. But it's his brand of football that puts me off more than anything else. The others, with Thomas Frank, he can play pragmatic when he has to. He can play really nice attacking football, excellent structure, brilliant man manager as well, wonders with a budget. I think as a head coach, not the guy signing people, with better players, he could perform. Graham Potter could do the same, but I just worry about the Chelsea experience having a hangover. My issue with Thomas Tuchel is, as I say, is he really genuinely going to be happy to just be a head coach and not have a say on who the players are that we buy? He gets told how to coach and isn't in control. I'm not sold that he wants that yet. Now, if the club announce he comes in and they announce the structure and they talk about it and that's what he's agreed to do and he's happy and on board, then Tuchel would be top. If he's not, then I would go Thomas Frank and Potter. So I've got a bit of an order to it, but none of those guys would be on my list. Does that make sense? None of those guys, if I wrote down my dream managers now, none of them would have been on the list.
Would you take Eddie Howe?
Yes. I mean, if Eddie Howe was added to that list, he'd be in there. I wouldn't cry about Eddie Howe.
Fair enough.
Again, the managers that we all know are like Simeone's, Inzaghi's as an example. These guys have been high up on my list the whole time. The problem is I don't feel they're attainable for us right now. So there is no point sitting there and screaming at my new ownership to say, go and get those managers. I don't think those guys want to come into our club right now. So there's no point wasting time and energy. And it's like a dog chasing a car. You know, one, you're probably not going to catch it. Two, what would you do with it if you did? You know, so we just need to be realistic at where we are, what needs to happen. But again, the only one I'm personally like dead set against is Gareth Southgate. It's the only one where it just doesn't fill me with any hope. The others I have hope for because there's good elements to them, but they all have question marks over them. So I'm just trying to be nice and balanced with my answer, if that makes sense.
So let's hope Man United get Southgate then.
I
think that makes sense to us, bro.
That's the one I would be most worried and concerned about coming in. I really would be really worried and concerned about Southgate, but I'll stay true to what I've said.
Isn't it worried for you that McKenna's coming to the club with the same core of players instead of the Rashfords, the Bruno Fernandes, the Maguires are still there? Isn't it worrying for you a little bit that he's coming to the same guys where he left with Oli? Isn't that worrying for you a little bit?
Do you know what? Yes. It is to a degree, but again, I trust the football decision makers at the club. So I want to keep going back to this in the sense of I believe they're doing a complete thematic review of the club. So once that review is complete, I believe what will happen is they'll look at it and go, well, we know it was these 4 or 5 players that were the ones leaking the stories to the press that the coaching was rubbish. So as long as you're removing those players, you might already find, by the way, that story came out 3 years ago. You might find those players have already left the football club. And if those players have already left the football club, then it isn't so much a problem. But equally, the squad is going to be overhauled as well over the next couple of years. And I've said all along, the reason why I think a new manager is an important element, it isn't even about Ten Hag. It's a lot easier, I think, to bring in McKenna or Frank or Tuchel, anybody, and say, right, fresh start. But from this fresh start, there is no more throwing the manager under the bus. We will be sticking with the manager. I think it's easier to do that with a new person than it is to try and mend relationships at the same time as changing everything else. And it's just about the speed of turnaround, I think, would be quicker this way. So, of course, there is a worry about him returning with the stories that came out, but I just trust these football decisions. But I think a lot like you Hassan, I think you trust Edwards.
Yeah.
Although I think you trust Edwards. I think Liverpool would have a stronger squad now if Edwards would have stayed 2 or 3 years ago than you do right now. I'm very similar when it comes to the names and the caliber of individuals we're bringing in. And I'm just going to give them, I can't ask for people like that to come in and then be angry and question every single decision and micromanage them as a fan. There's an element where you've got to say, right, I've wanted people like this. I don't agree with every decision, but I'm going to let it cook. I'm going to let it grow. I'm going to let it develop before I give my assessment of it. If that
even
makes
if
sense.
they get Southgate.
Yes, I will still refrain from going mental about it.
Yeah. No, I'm not asking to go mental, but I also I never have full blind trust in anyone, especially in football. Never.
It's not
in
blind
my
trust.
club, by the way,
Yeah.
I never do that.
Yeah. It's not blind trust. As I'm saying, I will express my opinion. I'll say, don't like that player we signed, or not happy with this managerial appointment. There's a difference between that and going scorched earth on the situation, as I feel some United fans will, if we don't sign a manager that they are over the moon with. For me, this is all about building that foundation, which is key. There's so many Man United fans who are ignoring. I actually saw someone tweet back at KJ today saying, KJ, why do we need another new rebuild? We've only just done one. And there are some Man United fans who are still, it's either delusion or they're completely uneducated on the fact that there has not been a rebuild since Sir Alex left. We've just essentially built upon the shit that's been created after each manager, and it's an absolute clusterfuck.
No, Man United definitely need a rebuild right now.
And we've not had one, and that's the craziest bit for me.
That's why McKenna might not be bad. It's just the step up that's the one thing. It's just, can the guy step up or no? That's it.
They need a